The moving truck pulled away, its engine fading into the soft hum of suburbia. Emily Brooks stood still on the edge of her new driveway, her hands trembling as the cool afternoon breeze brushed against her face. The yard smelled of trimmed grass and fresh paint, the kind of artificial perfection she hated. Around her feet, boxes lay stacked like quiet tombstones. Every one of them carried the memories of a life she'd lost, the life she'd shared with David. He'd been gone for 7 months. 7 long, echoing months since that night his convoy was ambushed overseas. The army had returned her a folded flag, a letter, and these boxes. She'd sold the old house and moved here, a smaller, quieter place, hoping maybe silence would hurt less. But silence in this neighborhood didn't feel peaceful. It felt watched. As she lifted a box labeled David's uniforms, something stirred across the street. Curtains moved. A figure shifted behind glass. Emily ignored it, brushing a tear from her cheek. She'd barely stepped inside when a voice startled her. Greater than, "Excuse me." A woman stood on the sidewalk, neat bob-cut hair, beige sweater, clipboard in hand. The badge on her chest read, HOA President, Karen Rutherford. Her smile was polite, but her eyes were sharp. "You must be the new resident," Karen said, glancing at the boxes. "We don't usually allow unregistered move-ins without prior approval. Did you notify the Homeowners Association?" Emily blinked, confused. The realtor said all paperwork was cleared last week. Karen's eyebrows rose. "Well, I didn't approve it yet. We like to be informed about who's moving into our community. Keeps everyone safe, you understand, safe?" Emily repeated softly. "It's just me." Karen's gaze dropped to a framed photo sticking out of one box. David in uniform, smiling, arm around Emily. Greater than, oh, a military family. Her smile flickered, then vanished. "Still, you'll need to submit a vehicle list, visitor log, and proof of HOA dues. And please," she sniffed, "try to keep boxes off the porch. It lowers the neighborhood's aesthetic." Before Emily could answer, Karen turned and walked away, clipboard snapping shut like a verdict. That evening, Emily unpacked in silence. She placed David's medals on the mantel, his books on the shelf, his jacket over the armchair like he'd just stepped out for a minute. But the air in the house felt cold, heavy, like the walls disapproved of her presence. Outside, porch lights blinked on one by one. And then came the faint click, the sound of a camera phone. Emily turned toward the window, just in time to see a flash. Someone was taking pictures. Her chest tightened. She stepped outside, scanning the dark lawns, but whoever it was had already slipped away. She told herself it didn't matter. Tomorrow she'd meet a few neighbors, maybe explain, maybe they'd understand. But by morning, the neighborhood Facebook group had exploded. Greater than new lady moving boxes all night, suspicious. She says she's a widow, but didn't file HOA introduction form. Military story might be fake. Emily's hands shook as she read the posts. Someone had shared a photo, her silhouette framed in her window, bending over a box. Captioned, "Unregistered tenant or squatter." A hard knock hit the door. 2 police officers stood there. "Greater than, ma'am, we got a call from the HOA president. Said there's been suspicious movement, possibly an illegal occupant." Emily froze. "Illegal? This is my home." The taller officer sighed. "Mind if we check the paperwork?" Her hands trembled as she showed them the deed. David's name printed across it. The officer's expression softened. "Greater than Captain David Brooks. Ma'am, I served under him. He was a good man. The other officer frowned at Karen, who was now standing smugly on her porch, phone in hand. "Ma'am," he called to her, "everything checks out. You've wasted police time." Karen stiffened, pretending not to hear. Emily's throat tightened. "She called the cops on me because I unpacked my husband's things." The officer nodded, regret in his eyes. "Try to ignore her. Some folks don't know when to show respect." As the cruisers left, Emily stood in her doorway shaking. She stared at the boxes still unopened. David's medals, his letters, his folded flag. She whispered, voice cracking, "Greater than you'd hate this place, wouldn't you, David?" From across the street, the curtain moved again. Karen was still watching, eyes sharp, lips thin, scribbling something on that clipboard. Emily closed the door and locked it. And for the first time since David's death, she didn't feel alone in the house. But it wasn't comfort she felt. It was fear. Morning light crept across the boxes that still filled Emily's living room. She hadn't slept much. Every creak of the floorboards felt like judgment. Every shadow, another pair of watching eyes. The neighborhood was calm, but inside her chest, a storm churned. She made coffee and tried to steady her hands. A knock startled her. Again. When she opened the door, a small envelope had been slipped beneath it. No name, no return address. Inside was a note, written in neat cursive, "Greater than your porch violates HOA storage policy. Please remove items within 24 hours, or face a fine." Her breath hitched. She looked outside. 3 boxes still sat neatly beside the door. They weren't junk. They held her husband's medals, the ones she couldn't yet bring herself to unpack. Emily picked one up, feeling the weight of the metal through cardboard. He earned this with his life. That afternoon, she carried the boxes inside, one by one. Across the street, Karen's curtains fluttered. Emily ignored her and opened the last box. Inside was David's old camcorder. She pressed play. A grainy image flickered. David, smiling in his fatigues. "If you're watching this, Em, I guess I didn't make it home. But please, live. Find peace. Don't hide." Her throat burned. She sank to the floor, clutching the device. "I'm trying," she whispered. Outside, Karen was in her yard, phone to her ear. Emily could hear fragments of her voice, words like violation, uncooperative, and unsanitary conditions. 2 hours later, a police car slowed in front of Emily's house again. "Oh no," she breathed. The same officer from yesterday stepped out, shaking his head. "Ma'am, I'm sorry." Another complaint came through. Karen stood on her porch, arms folded. "She's ignoring HOA policy. Those boxes were still outside this morning. We can't allow that. It attracts pests and lowers property values." Emily felt heat rise behind her eyes. "They're my husband's things. He died serving this country. I just needed time." "Emotional stories don't exempt anyone from rules," Karen interrupted coldly. "If we let one person slide, everyone will." The officer cut her off. "Ma'am, that's enough. This woman hasn't broken any law." He turned to Emily gently. "Would you like me to file a harassment report?" Emily shook her head. "No, she's not worth it." But the words stuck in her throat, bitter and heavy. That night, the sky darkened with a storm. Thunder rolled over the neighborhood. Emily sat by the window, watching the rain streak down the glass, when a flash of lightning illuminated Karen outside, trying to cover her flower pots with plastic sheets. The wind ripped them away, scattering debris across Emily's yard. One pot shattered near the porch. Emily sighed, pulled on her coat, and stepped into the rain. "Let me help," she called. Karen looked up, startled, drenched, and shivering. I don't need. She slipped on the wet pavement, hitting her knee with a cry. Emily rushed over. Don't move. She helped her up and guided her under the awning. The rain poured harder, soaking them both. For the first time, Karen didn't look like the stern president of a perfect community. She looked small, human. Inside, Emily grabbed a towel. Sit. You're bleeding. Karen hesitated, but obeyed. The warm light of the living room fell over the open boxes, the medals, the folded flag, the photo of David. Karen's eyes flicked to it, softening. That's your husband? Emily nodded quietly. He was deployed for 8 years. I thought I'd have more time with him. Karen's fingers tightened around the towel. I didn't know. Emily gave a faint smile. You didn't ask. The silence that followed was heavy, filled only by the sound of rain. Karen's gaze stayed on the medals. My son joined the Marines when he was 19, she murmured. He never came back either. Emily froze. The anger in her chest began to loosen. You lost him? Karen nodded, her voice trembling. 10 years ago. I tried to make this neighborhood perfect because I couldn't control that one thing. If everything looked right, maybe nothing else would break again. The realization hit Emily like a slow ache. Karen wasn't cruel for pleasure. She was broken in her own way. I called the cops because I saw those boxes and thought. Karen swallowed hard. I thought someone was stealing from an empty house. I didn't even check. Emily looked at her, eyes soft. You didn't need to be perfect, Karen. You just needed to be kind. For the first time, Karen couldn't meet her gaze. She looked at the photo on the mantel, David's easy smile, the courage in his eyes. Greater than, he looks proud, she whispered. He was, Emily said. He believed in people. Even the difficult ones. Karen let out a shaky laugh that turned into a sob. I've been awful. To you, to everyone. I thought keeping order meant keeping people safe, but I've just been keeping them distant. The storm eased outside, leaving the air smelling clean. Karen stood slowly, wiping her tears. I'll fix it. The HOA forms, the fines, forget them. And if anyone gives you trouble again, they'll answer to me. Emily smiled faintly. That's a start. Karen looked at the photo once more. He'd have liked you. You remind me of why people move into neighborhoods in the first place, so they're not alone. As she left, the porch light flickered in the wet air. Emily watched her walk back, across the street. No clipboard, no badge, just a woman carrying her regret. The next morning, the neighborhood Facebook group had a new post from Karen Rutherford. Greater than, to our newest neighbor, Mrs. Brooks. Welcome. Her husband served our country with honor. Let's show her the same respect. No comments of suspicion followed, only hearts and kind words. Emily stood by the window, sunlight touching David's medals. For the first time since he'd gone, the house felt alive. She whispered, You'd be proud, love. Even Karen found her heart again. Across the street, Karen waved shyly from her porch. Emily waved back, her smile small but real. The boxes were finally empty, the ghosts inside them. Finally at rest.